Wherever you are on your road to retirement, we're here to help you stay on course. Welcome to Mason Street Retirement Insights, the show dedicated to helping you plan your financial future.
What is your biggest concern? People are very focused on the amount of money that they have saved, but it's really about the income that we generate. Income is what's going to drive lifestyle. And so the income strategies that we utilize are what's key.
And now, here's your host, Sean Mason.
Welcome into Mason Street Retirement Insights. My name is Casey, and I am back again with financial advisor Sean Mason, the founder of Mason Street Wealth Management right here in Fresno. And he is here every single week to help us cut through the noise and make smarter decisions when it comes to our retirement, which we all could do. So, Sean, great to be back with you. Great to see you. How we doing this weekend, my friend?
Oh, everything's so good, Casey. I'm happy to be here too. Love hanging out with the community. Weather's extraordinary. We got some rain last week, so that helps the environment, or that helps the scenery. Love that. I'm meaning to check and see if China Peak is still open, the ski resort. I doubt it.
You need to check on that and report back to us.
I need to check it out.
Well, April showers bring May flowers, so we'll take the rain as we, head into spring. We'll take a little bit of drizzle.
Yeah, we'll take it for sure. It was an awesome lightning thunder show, too, so.
I always enjoy those, but we're indoors today. We want to get out and enjoy the sunshine, but we've got some work to do first, don't we?
Let's go.
We got some good stuff that I'm going to chat with you about today. I don't want us to wait, but as we get started, we do want you to go ahead and jot down our phone number. Plug it into your phone. 559-847-0039 is our number. And that number is very important because Sean has set aside a limited number of openings this week for his introductory retirement planning assessment. And he's going to do this exclusively for our radio listeners and completely complimentary if you have $500,000 or more saved for retirement. So all you got to do is dial 559-847-0039. And this is a no pressure conversation where you can sit down and talk with a local professional. You can ask Sean your questions, and you can gain a clearer picture of where you stand and what adjustments might make sense for you. So I encourage you not to wait. Go ahead, snag one of these spots while we've got them available. 559-847-0039. Or if online is an easier route for you, you can always find us at masonstreetretirementinsights.com. You'll just click on that contact tab, fill out your info for us. Make sure you say that you heard us here on the radio, and then a Mason Street teammate will reach out directly to you. It is as easy as that. All right, Sean, let's dive in today because there's been a lot of talk lately about ways that people could potentially keep more of their money in retirement. And one idea making the rounds definitely caught my attention, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it. One senator out of New Jersey, Cory Booker, he has floated a proposal to make the first $75,000 of income tax-free. Now, that could mean a lot in retirement. So I'm wondering, Sean, if you see many clients with income above $75,000, and if this ever becomes a law, would this actually help? Talk to us about your thoughts.
Yeah, it would certainly help those making under $100,000, but sounds like a soundbite to me. It's easy to propose tax cuts. It's hard to find the money to replace it. And Cory Booker's camp would take it from everyone making over $100,000. And since 5 times more political donations come from people making over $100,000, I doubt it'll ever see the light of day. But Casey, to your question, for sure it would make a difference. Every dollar we save in taxes increases lifestyle or at least generational wealth.
So even if this idea never becomes a law, what you're really saying is that tax savings still matter, especially in retirement, right?
Yeah, they do. And most families that I work with spend over $75,000 a year. In fact, most spend over $100,000 a year. But for a married couple filing joint, that first $32,000, more in some cases, is actually tax-free already because of the standard deduction. And for singles, it's the first $16,000. Then the next $100,000 falls into the 10 and 12% tax brackets. And then for singles, it's that it's that next $50,000. So the goal really is to control tax brackets. And when we're in retirement, if we position our savings strategically, we can gain a lot of control over those brackets.
Okay, so walk us through what that actually looks like, because it sounds great in theory, but what does it really mean in real life?
Well, the big jump in the tax code, at least the federal tax code, goes from 12 to 22%. And if you can situate your savings so that you can stay under the 22% tax bracket for most of your retirement years, it can significantly reduce the amount of tax you pay over a lifetime, and in many cases into your kids' lives. This happens through tax diversification strategy. Imagine if you have some of your money in a pre-tax position, like your 401k or your IRA, and some in a taxable position, like the bank or a brokerage account, and then some in a tax-free Roth or life insurance contract. That gives you the ability to pull the right amount out of each account through the years. We see six-figure, often multiple six-figure tax savings using these strategies.
Well, and that's where this becomes real money for people, right? Because that's not small change that you're talking about here.
Well, that's for sure. And where the big surprise comes for many people is the tax consequence caused by required minimum distributions, or RMDs. We lose control of tax brackets because we're forced to take withdrawals from the pre-tax accounts, the 401k or the IRA, whether we want to or not. RMDs can cause more tax on Social Security, capital gains. They can increase Medicare premiums. And when our spouse passes, our taxes can double because now we have to file single. And those pensions usually suffer even higher consequences. The good news is, in many cases, we can mitigate this through comprehensive tax planning. And this is an area that most CPAs don't venture into. And if your current advisor hasn't initiated tax planning, it's probably not something they want to do.
So, Sean, how early should people be thinking about tax planning like this? Is this just a retirement issue, or do we need to start looking at this earlier than retirement?
We need to get to it right away. I would suggest 5 to 10 years from retirement is when you want to start positioning retirement savings for tax purposes. If you're already in retirement, then right now is the time to get started. And if it's not your area of expertise, I urge you to get counsel on your individual situation. It can mean hundreds of thousands of dollars. I invite you to call our office. We'll find a good time for you to come in or meet by Zoom. And it's a great opportunity for you to talk through your situation. We might have some recommendations you can use on your own, and we can determine if there's something we can do to help put you in a better position. So call right now. Our team is standing by, 559-847-0039. And for our first 5 callers, we're going to provide you with your own individual comprehensive planning assessment, estate planning, these tax strategies we've been discussing, investment allocations, all the elements you need to be thinking about to make your retirement lifestyle the best it can be.
559-847-0039. If you were thinking, I'd love a second set of eyes on this, I'd love to get this conversation started, now is a great time to call, and we can get that set up for you right away. If you've got $500,000 or more saved for retirement, all you need to do is dial 559-847-0039, or you can visit us at Mason Street retirementinsights.com, and we can get you scheduled for your very own complimentary introductory retirement planning assessment. Now, Sean, while taxes get a lot of attention, there's another assumption that a lot of people make about retirement, and that is how much they will actually spend over time. Does spending decline over the course of a retirement? Well, with all this inflation that we're seeing right now, you'd probably say no way, right? But I want us to listen to what financial advisor Dana Onspach recently told FinStream TV.
Right now, where everybody's talking about the price increases of gas and groceries, we are routinely saying, we have built-in inflation raises for you. Would you like to increase the monthly paycheck that you receive? There's room to do so. And even though we test and we model and we show them that they could increase it and it's not going to increase the risk of running out of money, overwhelmingly, we are still hearing people say, no, I'm comfortable on what I'm receiving. So they're absorbing those costs or making trade-offs, but nobody is expressing that they're feeling that pinch.
So I'm wondering, Sean, if you've noticed this, even when clients say, they're comfortable, how do you stress test that comfort level, and what triggers kind of make you say, hey, let's sit back and recheck the paycheck here?
Yeah, it's a good question, Casey, because this is a really important concept you bring up because it talks directly to lifestyle, which is actually my cause for the families I work for. It's income that drives that lifestyle, more specifically, spendable or net income.
So it's not just what somebody has, it's what their income actually supports. That's what people really will feel month to month throughout their retirement.
Yeah, that's right. And there's a lot of strategy that goes into designing an income plan that'll last a lifetime. Rates of return, taxes, inflation will all affect spendable income. And spendable, you're going to hear me keep repeating that, spendable income is where it's at. But you brought up a really good point. It's part of the discussions I'm having with my clients, how expensive everything has become, inflation, and planning for that inflation in the future. And Casey, we should put that into context for people. The average inflation rate over the 30 years before the Biden administration was 2.3%. The average during that administration was over 5% or over double. And that's what people are feeling today. Its prices don't come down. That would be called deflation, which is just as detrimental to the economy. The economy is really at its best when the inflation rate is between 2 to 3%. Last year, it was 2.6. So we got back to normal. We will see inflation rise this year because of elevated oil prices due to the Iran conflict. But, analysts predict that will be very short term as long as the conflict is not prolonged.
So when you're building these spending plans for your clients, what assumptions are you actually using?
Oh, we're using rates of return, inflation rates. The point is that based on history, we can actually assume inflation will average 2 to 3%. And you originally asked about the paycheck conversations and how we stress test inflation over time. I find that most people want a very conservative outlook. So we use 1.5% COLA or cost of living adjustments on Social Security and pensions, and then we use 4% on inflation. And when we originally designed the plan, we overestimate expenses. Depending on what phase of life they're in, the go-go years when people are most active and traveling, the slow-go years or the no-go years, spending will change significantly.
And that's where the real life decisions kind of start to change. That's where expectations meet reality.
Yeah, that's for sure. And, we have that paycheck discussion at least once per year. It really depends on their plans for that year. Sometimes they don't need an increase, but they decide to take an extra trip. In fact, I was meeting with Bill and Deborah. They were in the office last week, and we were talking about this year's spending needs. They didn't need an increase to their monthly withdrawals, but they have a trip to Costa Rica planned in the fall, and their granddaughter found out about it and asked if she could go. She's 10 years old. I got to tell you, it was so neat to see. Bill was smiling ear to ear when Deborah was telling me this. It made him feel so good that she wanted to go with them. So they asked me to model into their plan the cost of taking both of their kids and their families, spouses, grandkids, the whole family, an additional 9 people and $16,000. So we created a scenario with their plan to include the extra expenses. And we found that because they hadn't needed an increase in their withdrawals for last year, and then, like I said, they didn't need one this year, the inflation we originally factored in for the 2 years would more than pay for it. It was so neat. Deborah sent me a picture of the granddaughter cheering. It was so cute.
Cheering that she got to go on the trip?
Yeah, she was loving it. And, it's so great because instead of just taking the daughter, they're taking the entire family.
Wow, that's beautiful. I mean, that's really what retirement planning is all about, being able to say yes to moments like that and create those memories. That's what we work our whole life for, right?
Oh, it's so great. It's one of my favorite things of what I do.
So let me ask you this. What is a sign that somebody might be underestimating what they'll want to spend later on? Even if they feel comfortable now, what do you look for that tells you, hey, we might need to bump this up in the future?
When they start not spending, I'm a huge advocate of living life making sure that it makes sense, making sure that mathematically it makes sense. But I just want them to spend the money based on the plan. And when they start pulling back and they stop spending the money that we originally planned for, that's when I have to start talking about or getting real with what their opportunities are. On the flip side, though, if they start spending more money than we had planned on, that's when we have to sit down and have those more difficult discussions.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you revisit this spending conversation or the paycheck conversation annually. So I'm wondering why that annual paycheck conversation is so important. Even when nothing, seems to change from last year, why is it so important that you still revisit it every year and talk it through with your clients?
Gosh, it's such a great question. And you're right, we do have a plan. But that plan is not going to stay set every year. They found a great deal on a cruise and they're taking it and it's going to be an extra $10,000. Or, like Bill and Deborah, they decided they wanted to take their family. Things change. Things come up in the spending. And it's really important because the investment plan is dependent on the spending plan. And that's the key because we cannot get caught taking money out of an account that's gone down. So whatever dollar amount that we're going to spend this year, we've got to make sure those dollars in our position that they don't fluctuate in value.
These are conversations that are so necessary to have. And that number for you to start yours is 559-847-0039. If you're listening to this conversation and you're thinking, I feel okay, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't feel that confident in the plan I have behind me. That's exactly why Sean is offering you his complimentary introductory retirement planning assessment if you've got $500,000 or more saved for your retirement. 559-847-0039. That's what you need to dial. Remember, we have a limited number of openings this week exclusively for our radio listeners. This is your chance. You can sit down with a local professional. You can look at how your income and your spending actually work together and then see if any adjustments could help you feel more confident as you move forward into your retirement. 559-847-0039. We've got our teammates standing by right now. They're ready to take your call and help get you scheduled. Or you can always head online to masonstreetretirementinsights.com and you'll just click that contact tab and then we'll reach out directly to you. All right, Sean, we talked a lot today about taxes, about spending, but there's one more situation that I think can really test a person's plan. And it's something a lot of families don't expect or prepare for because sometimes retirement decisions, they don't come from a paycheck or a market move. They come from a sudden windfall. So I want to get your thoughts on a scenario that I saw this week. We have twin siblings, Ellen and her brother Arthur. They're in their early 50s, and they recently both inherited $500,000 from their aunt. So $500,000 each for Ellen and Arthur. So I want to talk about what each of them did with this money. Ellen paid off her mortgage for $280,000. She then did some home renovations. She took an expensive cruise and then did a lot of gifting. And then 3 years later, all that money was gone, but she does have a lot of equity in her home. Now, Arthur, on the other hand, he took a different approach. He paid off his credit cards and some other high interest debt. Then he increased contributions to his retirement accounts. And then he used the rest to kind of fill in the gaps. And years later, he still has a lot of that principal left. So, Sean, I'm wondering if you could talk to us about your thoughts on these two approaches to this windfall. And does this kind of line up with what you typically see when clients inherit money?
Yeah, and this isn't rare, actually. In fact, there's two concepts here that come up often in conversations I have with families when they first come into my office. The best use of inheritance and then whether or not to pay off the home. And both, of course, are going to depend on the current situation. But when we're working with a family or individual in designing their retirement plan, and they know there's a probable inheritance, they usually are reluctant to put it into the plan.
Okay.
First, they're being pragmatic in that you never know what healthcare costs can end up being. But also, probably the emotion side, they don't want to base their lifestyle on being given something.
Well, and that kind of discipline that you're talking about probably saves a lot of regret later on, but I feel like that's a very different mindset than most people have. I feel like that's the exception, not the rule.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it goes all different ways, but it's pretty often that, they feel that way. And so we actually end up creating an additional scenario in their plan to account for the best use of the inheritance. And that ends up being a much better situation than when they get that surprise phone call letting them know that Aunt Mary died and left them money. Yeah, that's what we call newfound money. We didn't plan on it, so let's buy the new car or take another trip. I will say the families we guide through retirement planning are very good at getting with us to talk it through. But Casey, all money in retirement, it's a balance between safety and lifestyle, and each individual's priorities are different.
Okay. Well, so I want to talk about this mortgage decision that Ellen made, because that's, I feel like, where a lot of emotions really come into play for people. So talk to us about your thoughts on paying off the mortgage.
Yeah, well, when it comes to paying off your mortgage in retirement, there isn't a one-size-fits-all answer. It really comes down to trade-offs. You know, on one hand, paying off the mortgage gives a feeling of certainty and safety. And not paying interest is the same as earning interest, and it's guaranteed. You know, it also creates a better cash flow by lowering expenses. But then on the other hand, when you tie up money in your house, there's opportunity costs. Historically, a diversified portfolio has earned more than the interest rate of a mortgage. So mathematically, you could be better off keeping the mortgage and investing that money. And it's important to keep in mind, if you have a $200,000 mortgage and you also have $200,000 in an account that you could use to pay off the mortgage, your mortgage is essentially paid off. It's just in a separate bucket. You should also consider flexibility, because equity in the house is not as liquid as money in an account. You know, often people don't realize that when retired, if there's not a sizable pension, it might be difficult to qualify for a home equity line of credit because of low income. They don't look at assets as a means to make the payment. So it comes down to, does the feeling of having your home free and clear outweigh a probable financial benefit of interest rate arbitrage and flexibility?
I'm curious, in the history of your career, what's the biggest mistake you've seen somebody make with an inheritance?
Yeah, it's real, and there's always such regret when it happens. But it's always that situation to where they weren't planning on it, they didn't realize it was even there, and all of a sudden they get that phone call and they get emotional. They feel like their retirement plan, they've already decided what their lifestyle is going to be, and then all of a sudden they get this influx of money and they go out and spend it, and there was no thought through it.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's the families that we work with, they're going to come to us and we're going to talk it out. But I've had several situations where we weren't working with them yet, and they came to us after the fact.
Yeah.
And it reeks of regret. And it's really unfortunate to see.
Yeah. So you would say the biggest mistake is people being hasty when they get an influx of money. So kind of like Ellen, I feel like she was a little hasty with her decision. So had she slowed down and talked through a plan first with a financial advisor like yourself, what could have looked different for Ellen versus Arthur?
You know, in the planning, in that planning process, and even when you already have a plan, the way you're able to go out and test everything, she actually made some reasonable decisions.
Yeah.
You know, she paid off the mortgage. What's wrong with that? But before you pay off the mortgage, it's important to see how it works out mathematically in a plan, because there's two sides. One side is the pragmatic, the math side. The other side is the emotion, and they're both equally as important. But how do you really know how you feel if you don't know the math? So having that plan worked out, having that tested is really going to help you understand the math and look at all sides so that you can decide how you really feel about it. And so, you know, we're talking about these things all the time with the families that we work for, having these discussions with people come in for the first time. You know, I really encourage you to pick up the phone and give our team a call. Come in and have the discussion. It's a great opportunity to get some additional insight on your individual situation and how it's affecting you right now, and it's how it's going to affect you in the future. And is there any strategy that can be utilized to improve your position? You want to know that stuff. So give us a call and come in and we'll walk through it together.
That number to do it, it's 559-847-0039. I think this story of Ellen and Arthur really highlights something important, that it's not just about how much money you have, it's really about how purposeful you are with it. So if you're thinking, I want to make sure I am making the right calls, not just the easy ones, not just the ones that feel good in the moment, that's exactly where a conversation with Sean can help you out. 559-847-0039 is what you need to be dialing right now. Sean is offering you his introductory retirement planning assessment. Remember, this is exclusive just for our radio listeners with $500,000 or more saved for retirement. This is a chance for you to sit down with a local professional. Sean is right here in Fresno. He's going to take a look at your entire financial picture, and you guys can talk through the decisions that really are going to matter for your retirement. So give us a call right now, 559-847-0039, or head online to MasonStreetRetirementInsights.com. Click that contact tab, fill out your info, make sure you say you heard us on the radio, and then one of our Mason Street teammates will reach out directly to you. We'll give you a few minutes now to make that call while we take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. Lots more is still ahead here on Mason Street Retirement Insights. We'll be right back.
Hi, what'll it be?
I'll have a cone.
One vanilla cone coming right up.
Do you have any other flavors?
Not unless you want vanilla.
When choosing an advisor to build your retirement plan, you want more than just one option.
That's all you have? Vanilla?
Unfortunately, that's how most 401ks are designed. Limited options. The vanilla ice cream of the financial world. Sean Mason of Mason Street Wealth Management can take that financial vanilla cone and turn it into your retirement banana split. Call 559-847-0039. That's 559-847-0039 or online at masonstreetwealthmanagement.com. The choice is yours. A world of options and retirement flavors, or...
Fine, you want something different?
Yes.
Okay, 2 scoops of vanilla.
There are many lessons we learn as we're growing up. One was, don't touch the hot stove.
Ow.
Today, Uncle Sam is trying to keep that lesson alive with your 401k. Think about it. Don't touch your 401k before 59 and a half. You'll pay a penalty. Hot stove. Oof. Or don't touch your 401k. You'll have to pay taxes. You'll get burned.
Ouch.
You've been saving in this account your whole life. Why shouldn't you use it for retirement? So the financial industry can keep charging you fees, or the government can roll up your tax bill? Come on. Sean Mason at Mason Street Wealth Management believes in letting you enjoy your money. You worked for it, you saved it. Let's give you the confidence and permission to spend it. And there are plenty of options for you to explore. Go to MasonStreetWealthManagement.com to find out more. It's a no-obligation meeting to talk about planning and enjoying your retirement. Or call 559-847-0039. That's 559-847-0039. And let's give you some financial oven mitts for your 401k.
Welcome to Willie's Wings, home of the secret sauce.
I'll take a dozen wings. Oh, by the way, I love that sauce. What's in it?
Can't tell you.
Why not?
It's a secret.
While many financial advisors claim to have the secret sauce, they don't. In fact, if their sauce is so good, why are they keeping it a secret? Sean Mason of Mason Street Wealth Management doesn't keep anything a secret. He knows there's much more to retirement planning than stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. He'll develop a strategy designed specifically for you. It's your own secret sauce for retirement. Call Sean Mason at Mason Street Wealth Management for your personal portfolio x-ray. Call 559-847-0039. That's 559-847-0039 or online at masonstreetwealthmanagement.com.
Fine, you want to know what's in the sauce?
Absolutely.
Tablespoon of paprika.
Really?
You have found Mason Street Retirement Insights. My name is Casey, and I am here with my buddy Sean Mason, president of Mason Street Wealth Management right here in Fresno, asking for his ideas on things that you can be working on as you get closer to your retirement. As you are listening today and you've got questions, want to remind you of our phone number. That's 559-847-0039. You can schedule some time to sit down with Sean for that introductory retirement planning assessment. 559-847-0039. Or we are also online. That website's MasonStreetRetirementInsights.com. All right. Thanks to recent changes in tax laws, including a $6,000 senior deduction for those ages 65 and over, you might be in store for a higher refund. We've got Jill Schlesinger with CBS News talking about this. Take a listen.
Well, it's because of those new tax law provisions and a larger standard deduction. And a lot of people were withholding based on the old rules, which means they probably over withheld. So what does that mean? We saw last tax season refunds averaging over $3,100. And we could see that rise towards $3,500, maybe even $4,000, depending on your situation.
So, Sean, we could always spend that extra money or we could sock it away in an emergency fund. But I'm curious, if somebody wants to use it to make more of a tax impact on their retirement, what could they do with it? What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, it's been really fun. I mean, we've already identified several situations where people are getting a significant higher tax refund this year. I met with a couple last week who just booked a trip to Hawaii with their tax refund. I like that idea. Let's go.
I'm down.
Yeah, for sure. But, there's many strategies we can use. Those extra dollars, it's important to think about that those extra dollars are coming to you tax-free. So contributing to a Roth IRA could really help your long-term tax plan. Maybe you're not in a position to be able to contribute to a Roth, maybe because of income thresholds or you retired and you don't have earned income. In that case, think about contributing those dollars to an investment-grade life insurance account. It's just another great tax strategy, and it can be designed to provide long-term care funding, legacy for kids or grandkids, in addition to tax-free income.
So you're talking about using these extra dollars in a more strategic way. And I know one strategy you just mentioned, we talk a lot about it on this show, is Roth conversions. And this kind of seems like a perfect opportunity to connect those dots. So how could this tax refund actually help somebody make their Roth conversion a little more effective for them?
Yeah, it's a really good question and a great opportunity. I would be suggesting to think about using those dollars to pay the taxes on a Roth conversion. At first glance, that doesn't sound real exciting to send the money right back to the government. But conversions can have a powerful effect on your tax plan. And when converting money from a tax-deferred account, the 401k, the IRA, to a Roth, most often a portion of those dollars are withheld for taxes. But if you use outside funds like your tax refund, it can increase the long-term tax benefits significantly. And Casey, it's good you brought up the tax planning aspect because it's so often overlooked in retirement planning. For most of us, the goal is to get as many spendable dollars out of our resources as possible throughout our lifetime, and then pass what's left to who we care about and not who we don't, which is usually the government in a form of taxation. And taxes are the biggest erosion factor to that goal. I meet with CPAs quite often. We walk through tax strategy. We walk through Roth conversion and tax loss harvesting strategies. CPAs are usually great at helping us reduce taxes in the current year. Mm-hmm. But for most people, the amount of taxes they pay over their lifetime is what's most important. And that takes advanced tax planning.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if you could maybe give us an example of a client that you help them use their tax refund in a strategic manner like we've been talking about.
Yeah, for sure. And there's been a few. Jim and Joellen, they came in just about 2 weeks ago. And we were talking about tax planning for the next year, and they brought up the fact that they were getting a pretty significant tax refund this time. Joellen's 60, she turned 65 last year. Jim turned 66 last year, and he is very excited because he is right now retiring. He retired in January. He's been a correctional officer for 30 years. they're both going to get that extra $6,000 senior deduction. And Jim, because he's a correctional officer, really has an opportunity for a lot of overtime. And he did put in a lot of overtime last year. And it just so happens that one of the benefits of the big, beautiful bill was no taxes on overtime. And so he's going to get quite a significant tax refund this year, and they're going to use that tax refund to pay the taxes on a Roth conversion. And we figured out that that Roth conversion is probably going to benefit them in the way of about $30,000 in tax-free money in the future. So it's been a really good journey walking through the different opportunities with people because of the new tax law. But Casey, these tax strategies we've been discussing require advanced calculation. And there's no, one-size-fits-all plan. We have to individually tailor to each situation. So I want to invite our listeners to come into our office for a retirement planning assessment. Investments, your estate planning, tax strategies, all those elements you have to be considering. And for our first 5 callers, we're going to do this with no cost. And then for the first time ever, we're going to include our Roth conversion analysis. It's just a great opportunity for people to get insight into how this powerful tax strategy can benefit you individually. So I really encourage you, give us a call right now. Call us at 559-847-0039. Our team will find a convenient time for you to come into the office or meet by Zoom if that's better for you.
559-847-0039. If you don't have a plan for how your tax decisions today affect your retirement tomorrow, you're not alone, but thankfully that is something that you don't have to figure out by yourself. 559-847-0039. That's the number you're dialing right now if you have $500,000 or more saved for retirement and you are ready to secure your spot for your very own introductory retirement planning assessment with Sean. And today only, first time ever, also that Roth conversion analysis that Sean is offering to you. 559-847-0039 is how you get the ball rolling, or you head online to MasonStreetRetirementInsights.com. So, Sean, that refund we were talking about could be more than just extra money for people. It could be a strategic move that helps them out later on, especially when taxes become a bigger piece of the retirement puzzle. But here's where a lot of people, I think, get stuck. Even if they want to do the right thing, they're looking at this market and they're thinking, is now really the time for me to invest more? Which brings us to something I found very interesting, because most of us are just regular people with a 401k trying to make the right decisions for our retirement. And according to a new study, it was done by Albright Solutions, us retirement savers, we see the economy differently than those on Wall Street. This study found that people who frequently buy and sell stocks, they are plowing money into the market. But us retirement savers, we are moving in the other direction towards cash, bonds, and fixed income. So, Sean, for those who are running for safety here, I'm wondering if you think they're being smart or maybe if they're potentially missing out on a really big opportunity. What are your thoughts?
Well, a big part of that answer is going to be based on why they're running to safety. But it's a great question, and because of the economic environment we're experiencing right now, it really deserves the attention. Usually this is a risk tolerance discussion, and rightfully so. We're all looking for a stress-free retirement, but we're really in exciting times. I mean, there's opportunities popping up constantly. Things are moving fast, which can cause anxiety. FOMO, fear of missing out, fear of making decisions. And yeah, equities have ruled the markets for over the last few years, but we also have to consider the unique interest rate environment we're in and be aware of opportunities that can come along with it. Bonds, they make up the lion's share of fixed income asset classes and are heavily affected by interest rate movement. And history has shown that when interest rates increase, the bond values decrease, and then when interest rates go down, often those bond values go up. And we just happen to be in a very high interest rate environment right now, at least compared to recent times. So those that are paying attention can find an opportunity to capture some bond value increases if interest rates start to decline significantly. And Casey, it's important to note that I'm not suggesting anyone can time the market. There's no crystal ball.
Well, right. So I'm curious. So if people are moving toward fixed income for that peace of mind, which makes complete sense, how do you help them avoid becoming too defensive and potentially missing out on opportunities elsewhere?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I would say being aware of momentum trends could prove to be really beneficial. But, with all that said, I would guess most of those people who are moving towards fixed income are feeling, a little bit uncertain and maybe concerned. I'm sure the media has a lot to do with it. They all have their bias spin, often politically driven, rarely data driven. But those who have hung in there with equities have been rewarded for sure. And the equities opportunities have been broadening, meaning technology, especially the Mag 7, focus on AI, have really carried the weight for the last few years. But we're seeing growth being spread out to other sectors. And this is really important to be aware of. Stock prices of the major tech players are extremely high. Investors may find value in lower prices within other sectors, and we're hyper-focused on those sectors and companies that are not necessarily in the AI category, but will significantly benefit from the advancement of AI technology.
Okay, so what can those that are concerned do to protect themselves, but also still capture growth?
Yeah, I think coming to grips with, who you are as an investor, you got to get real with if you should be managing the money. Do you have the skill set to be suggesting that the family's lifestyle and quality of life could be affected by the decisions you make? If not, then, you got to find a good advisor. I would suggest if you're getting close to or in retirement, you got to find a phase 2 fiduciary advisor. They're going to be more equipped to deal with you moving into retirement. But if you are going to be the one to be the family investor, then you just got to be paying attention because there's lots of opportunity. You got to be able to identify those opportunities. You got to be paying attention again to those trends. The momentum in different asset classes is key. And you've got to eliminate the emotion. There is no room for ego, and there's no room for fear either. Ego can contribute to significant losses. And what I mean by ego is sticking with something because you want to be right. It does not matter if you're right or wrong. It all matters about what happens in your investment accounts. And having fear of moving forward or having fear of making decisions, that could create huge losses for growth. That could create huge losses of opportunity. So you got to be real careful with your emotions. And then consider that there are risk mitigation strategies well beyond fixed income. We're looking at fixed income right now for growth opportunities, not risk mitigation. Think about strategies that can be utilized within equities that maybe have stop losses, maybe have some safety nets that you can utilize to mitigate risk on its own.
559-847-0039. I know that there's no one-size-fits-all answer here because everyone's situation is different. So if you're listening, you're wondering, am I being cautious or am I leaving opportunity on the table? That's exactly the kind of conversation you can have directly with Sean. 559-847-0039. We've opened up a few select spots on the calendar for our radio listeners who have saved $500,000 or more for retirement. We've opened those spots up for your very own introductory retirement planning assessment. Plus, today, only that Roth conversion analysis. So give us a call right now. Let's set a time to begin the conversation with you and Sean. 559-847-0039 or online at masonstreetretirementinsights.com. withdrawal.com. Now, Sean, I want to dig a little deeper on risk. I think that's the real tug of war here. People want to feel safe, but they don't want to miss growth at the same time. And underneath that is a bigger question that we don't always say out loud, but it's how much risk is somebody truly comfortable with when it's their retirement on the line. There's a brand new study that I wanted to chat with you about that basically proves that there is a gap between what retirees think is acceptable versus what advisors assume is acceptable. It was a study by Capital Group that looked at almost 6,000 retirees and 600 financial advisors with the goal of taking a closer look at risk. And here's what it found. It said advisors were comfortable with a 30% loss in client accounts if it meant longer-term growth. Retirees, on the other hand, said they were willing to risk only 15%, even if that meant an upside of 50%. So my question here, Sean, is do you talk to people who felt that their advisor was pushing them towards more risk or found more risk than they thought?
Yeah, actually, I see that all the time. In fact, actually, it's more often than not. And I read that article as well, and I found I was really happy that they did that study because this is one of those concepts that is overlooked by financial advisors, and probably in part because it's overlooked by the industry as a whole. It's really a discussion about the skill set of the advisor. And of course, that's assuming the investor is working with an advisor, because if not, they're taking it upon themselves to understand risk. Unfortunately, most view risk from pure emotion, which can really be detrimental to, lifestyle, quality of life, and then ultimately financial security. But a great advisor will educate the individuals they work with about what risk, truly is. Most people think risk is, conservative, being moderate, maybe being aggressive, but it goes so much deeper than that. And without the understanding, it's tough for a family to know their risk tolerance. When I ask people, what rate of return do your accounts need to make so that they can provide the lifestyle you're hoping for without running out of money, they rarely know. I'll ask, if a major market correction happens, how long of a recovery period? How long does it have to take? How long can your accounts handle that before they start taking permanent losses? And then I'll also ask, what are the opportunities during a market correction? These are all examples of practical discussion around risk. And it's essential to know the answer to those. But emotions are also very important. When I ask a family how much they're willing to see their accounts drop at any given time, they'll usually say a percentage. I'm willing to go down 20%, but then I'll ask that question in a different way, and I'll ask how many dollars they're willing to watch their accounts drop. Usually the answer becomes half of what the previous answer using a percentage was. So perspective is key. It's the advisor's obligation to educate and communicate that practical aspect of risk, and then discuss perspectives so that families can make more informed decisions about what their true risk tolerance is.
So what do you think people should be considering in determining their true risk tolerance?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to education. You've got to get educated on risks, or engage with a great advisor that understands risk to a deeper level than maybe you do on your own. You've got to understand the investment risk compared to income risk. There's a lot of strategy in how you take income, and there's a relationship between your investments and your income strategy, and you've got to get clarity on that because they're both affecting each other all the time. There's strategies where we can implement guarantees to where we have no market volatility concerns at all for a portion of our portfolio, which could also mean a portion of our income. And then we can also implement strategies that we're really relying on probabilities, which is probably more market-oriented. We know the market's a roller coaster, and we're going to have times of volatility, but the probability suggests that the majority of the time the market is up, and so we have to understand how to work between those two time horizons for each dollar. It's essential to understand that. The longer it is until we're going to spend a specific dollar, the more aggressive that a dollar could be invested. We can position risk so that risk and volatility does not affect our lifestyle, but it does give us that needed growth over time, and we can absolutely structure risk so that we can be successful there. We also got to be really aware of what the consequences of our risk is. Understand what that looks like, but then at the same time, recognize that there's opportunities in market corrections, and we want to position ourselves so that we can take advantage of those opportunities at any given moment.
We have opened up a few select spots on the calendar. Sean does that every week for our radio listeners. So I just want to remind you right now, if you've saved $500,000 or more for retirement, we encourage you to give us a call right now and reserve one of these spots for yourself. 559-847-0039. You can have a conversation with Sean about the life you're living now, the life you hope to be living in the years ahead, and then he can explain to you some of the processes, some of the things that they do at Mason Street Wealth Management, and how they might be able to help you put it all together in a plan for your future. Whether you live to 75, 85, 95, 105, you want to know that you're going to have that income coming in. And so does Sean. He wants to work with you on that plan with and for you. So let's start with that conversation. Give us a call right now. We will get a time set on the calendar, 559-847-0039. You can also go to MasonStreetRetirementInsights.com and click on the button that says contact, and it's very easy to begin that way as well. Or I think the easier route is to just give us that call right now, 559-847-0039, to schedule your very own introductory retirement planning assessment with Sean. Earlier this week, a friend of mine sent me an Instagram post that talked about various fears or phobias. One of them was called Plutophobia, which is the fear of money. So, of course, I went down the rabbit hole and I read that this can manifest during retirement in the fear of spending your savings. And what's one way to overcome that? Well, this article talked about one tool that helps increase certainty. So what do you think they're talking about here, Sean?
Well, and it's a real thing, Plutophobia. We don't run into it often because people that suffer from it typically have trouble accumulating wealth throughout their life, but it has come up a few times with people, especially who had recently inherited significant amounts of money. But that fear of running out plagues so many of us, maybe not to the level of Plutophobia, but it certainly interferes with lifestyle and quality of life. And often this affects a spouse who wants to live their greatest life, but are being held back by their spouse's concerns of running out of money and not having enough. The good news is there's a fix. You've heard me say so many times, going through our comprehensive planning process, it helps people see the reality of their situation, and then it exposes them to income strategies that can completely remove those fears and concerns of running out early. It really boils down to the income strategy that'll be the best fit. We've been told for years that we're financially prudent if we take 4% a year out of our accounts that are invested in the market and that will never run out of money. There's a lot of risk. That may or may not work. You're hoping the market performs to suit that strategy. It relies heavily on what's called sequence of returns, hoping the market delivers positive returns in the earlier years of retirement. Most of us want more certainty that our money will last. And there are income structures guaranteed and insured by A-rated insurance companies with multiple layers of protections. So some families might want to guarantee income to maybe cover their core expenses and then rely on the market for lifestyle desires. Some want to guarantee both and then use the market to grow the rest of their money long-term for healthcare expenses and eventually legacy. I've found that when families have the right balance between guarantees and taking risk in the market, they feel more secure to spend and live that lifestyle that we're hoping for. We can design and tailor an income plan to suit a family's needs and lifestyle desires. risk tolerance, flexibility, short-term versus long-term spending, taxation. These are all aspects we need to consider in that income plan design.
Yeah, I mean, it's always inspiring to me to hear how someone finds that confidence to enjoy their retirement that they've worked so hard for. And sometimes it really just takes that one moment or that one strategy to help them break through those worries. So have you ever seen a client make that leap, Sean, moving past the fear of spending in retirement and what, made the difference for them?
Yeah, Casey, that aspect you bring up of fear of spending, it's just no way to live your best life. And we deserve to have both lifestyle and security. And we can. Jared came into our office. He wanted to come in separate from his wife, Carrie, for the first visit. We don't usually do that, but he really talked about the need. And he explained that Carrie was having a hard time being confident that they could buy the cabin at the lake, which they had dreamed of for years, but then still continue that same lifestyle they were accustomed to. And they had some bucket list items that were really important to both of them. When Carrie came into the next meeting, I asked her to tell me what was important to her. Through that discussion, we identified that the issue was having to rely on the market. She said they lost over 30% of their savings in 2008, and she just knew that could happen again. So we created a net worth and cash flow analysis based on their current situation, and we tested how they would be affected in the event of a severe market correction. And I'll tell you, she was right. It would significantly alter their lifestyle and put them in jeopardy of funding future healthcare needs. So using specific investment and tax strategies, we were able to design an income plan that guaranteed the income they would need to cover the cabin expenses. It gave them the money they would need to check off those bucket list items over the next 10 years of retirement, and then ensure they would continue the same lifestyle they were accustomed to. They were both comfortable with relying on the market to fund those long-term expenses like long-term health care, and they figured the cabin would be the safety net in case they live longer than they planned for, or be the legacy to the kids along with their residents. Jared just emailed me letting me know they found the perfect cabin and put an offer in. I got to tell you, Casey, it's just so fun to see them so excited.
Oh, that's amazing. You love to hear it. I mean, that fear, it's true. It can keep you from enjoying the very retirement that you worked decades to build. And that's exactly what we do not want to happen. So if you're wondering whether you're being too conservative with your spending, or if you just want to know what is safe to spend without jeopardizing your future, Sean is here. He is eager to help. So give us a call. 559-847-0039 is that number for you. Claim a spot on Sean's calendar. Get that complimentary introductory retirement planning assessment that he's offering you. You guys can walk through your income sources. You can walk through what your goals are. And then together you can work to build a plan that's going to work for you and give you that confidence that you've been looking for. Our number for you again, 559-847-0039. One more time so you can write it down, 559-847-0039. Or you can always visit us online. We are at MasonStreetRetirementInsights.com. That's going to do it for us today here on Mason Street Retirement Insights. Sean, as always, thank you for breaking it down for us today. You and I will be back next week, same time, same place, with more retirement insight for Fresno. But until then, Sean, I'm going to hand it back over to you for the final word. Take us out today, my friend.
That was so much fun. Casey, love hanging out with the community. Got to make sure and get outside. We've been talking about around the office. We can't forget that a lot of times spring goes away real fast, so let's take advantage of it. We're here because we care about your success. We want your success, and we're going to keep bringing you information to help you. So keep coming back, and we'll see you next week.
Mason Street Wealth Management, MSWM, is a registered investment advisor, and the opinions expressed by MSWM on this show are their own and do not reflect the opinions of Motivate Investments. Registration is not an endorsement by securities regulators. Investment advisory services are offered through Motivate Investments, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. All statements and opinions expressed are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. The information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicit solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for any individual. Listeners are encouraged to seek advice from a qualified tax, legal, or investment advisor to determine whether any information presented may be suitable for their specific situation. Past performance is not indicative of future performance. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance products, including annuities. Offered through Sean A. Mason, California, insurance license number 0B54860. The firms are separate entities. Annuity guarantees rely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company and are not offered by Motivate Investments. Read your contract for restrictions, limitations, or penalties. MSWM is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if MSWM is licensed in your state, please call 559-892-0002.